Well, hey, diet disruptors. Welcome to another episode where I am working to disrupt everything you've ever thought you knew about nutrition and what it takes to actually reach our goals for the long term. I am all about simple, sustainable, satisfying, and I am here to be able to rock your world when it comes to nutrition. There's so much confusing stuff out there. And we know that our bodies are refuel as you go machine. We know that nothing thrives in a deficit. So why would our bodies thrive in a deficit? And actually teaching you the nutrition piece is pretty easy. I mean, it doesn't mean we're all going to do it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Sometimes our emotions get a hold of us. Am I right? How many of you have ever gone through this like moment of screw it? I don't care, whatever. I'm just eating the stuff. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, why'd I do that? Oh, I feel so gross. I know I'm going to feel gross. Why do I do this? And you feel like you sabotage yourself and you have no willpower, you have no control. And you're like, why? I'm going to tell you why. And that's where my experience as a behavior specialist coupled with a nutritionist is what makes us so unique here. Because again, I can teach people how to eat. That's actually the easy part, but you won't do it. I know that because in the first few years that I worked as a nutrition coach, I didn't put forward my behavior specialist kind of stuff. And I taught people how to eat and I taught people how to balance their blood sugar. I taught them how to eat PFC every 3 and like all the concepts. And it was working for everybody. They're like, oh my gosh, like amazing. I'm not dieting. I'm not tracking. I'm not counting my macros. I'm not counting calories. I'm not putting my food in an app. I'm like eating and I'm satisfied. I don't have cravings and it's incredible. And then life shows up. Something happened. 6 months, 12 months down the road, everybody was falling off. And I'm like, I don't understand. If I am showing them what they said they wanted, why is it not sticking for the long term? And I know that with diet, it's the reason why it doesn't, it's because it's miserable. Because your body can't be at a deficit forever. Because you can't do it on vacation or when life gets chaotic. But with what we teach, you can. So, like, why? If you're finally giving your body what it needs and it's telling you this is awesome, why aren't we doing it? Well, there's a whole piece around our bodies that no diet's ever going to teach you, never learned in school. And it's around our brain, our thinking, our mindsets, all of those things. And so if you've ever done a nutrition approach with none of that actually as a part of it, and then of course accountability and continuing to learn, then of course you're not going to stick with it. My whole goal is that you become your own nutrition coach. And every nutrition coach I've ever trained, because I do that, like I train nutrition coaches and personal trainers and all of that to be able to work with their clients. They say to me all the time, I had no idea that I actually had to be a therapist, like a counselor, like helping them to undo behaviors. And I'm like, oh, that's 99.9% of the job. But no nutrition certification is teaching you how to do that. It just so happens that as a behavior specialist, that's what I knew first. So once I learned the nutrition and then started training that and then realizing people weren't doing it, I'm like, whoa, it's behavior change. I know behavior change. So we're going to talk about why that whole emotional binging or that guilt that you feel after, why don't I have that same brain power when I'm in the middle of seeing a chocolate cake and I can't control myself? It all has to do with something called your amygdala. Now, what? Amygdala. My clients know all this. So if you're watching and you're a client, you're listening, you're a client, you can totally just put in your comments about how this concept has changed your life. Learning this has changed your life. So it's a little bit of a little brain lesson for you. And it's very cool because I actually learned this years and years and years ago when I was a national educational consultant and training teachers, principals, administrators on how their brain works as it relates to teaching and student behavior, their own behavior, all that kind of stuff. And when I saw the connection to our own patterns of behavior when it comes to self-sabotage, I was like, oh my gosh. And this is why people weren't sticking with it when I first started teaching nutrition, because I didn't do this kind of stuff. We're going to talk about your amygdala. Your amygdala is this little tiny part of your brain, super tiny, but super powerful. When I was a little girl, I used to say to my mom, Mom, I may be tiny, but I sure am tough. And that's what your amygdala is, tiny and tough. If you want to learn how to spell amygdala, AMGDALA, put that in the comments if you're watching me live or on replay, or if you are driving and listening, then don't put it in the comments. We are streaming live in our Diet Disruptive Squad Facebook group, free Facebook group, where I hang out along with my coaches, trying to give value and education, but also a community for you to be able to ask questions and hang out in. So go join our Diet Disruptive Squad Facebook group if you haven't already. And we're in our Facebook. We stream live in our Facebook page. We stream live on YouTube. We put portions of this in our Instagram page. So go check us out. Find us at Disruptive Nutrition. And follow me on Instagram at Carrie_Lupoli and hang out with me there. All right. So your amygdala, it's that tiny but tough little part of your brain that controls your emotions. It does. Whether you're bored, excited, mad, glad, frustrated, horny, any of the hungry, hangry, any of those things. Your amygdala is that control center. And then you have your hippocampus. Now, that is a bigger part of your brain that we call like the Wikipedia. That's the whole knowledge center. Like when you learn something, you file it away in a little file over there, and you can pull it out when you need it. It's really absolutely amazing. The hippocampus is larger. When we think about our emotions versus what we know we need to do, if we're in a good, calm place, we're like, I can do the things I know I need to do. But when our emotions get in the way, it's almost like we throw out what we know out the window. If you've ever said, I know what to do, I just don't do it. Or even more than that, it's during certain times of your life or your day where you are feeling a certain way, and what you know you should do seems to just completely get disregarded because your feelings take over. So we're not going to relate it to food first. We're going to relate it to being mad. If you've ever seen anybody angry in public, you realize it's like, when you hear like they're seeing red, whether you see somebody with road rage or somebody at the bank the other day when I was at the bank was so mad at the teller. It was like they were treating that person in a way that you just gotta know isn't like every single minute of every day kind of way they operate. It was like intense, and they were so mad they were seeing red. My daughter a couple weeks ago recorded somebody that was in traffic, and they got out of traffic and started screaming at another guy, actually took a water bottle and threw it at their car. And you're like, this can't be you all the time. If this was you all the time, you would end up in jail. Like you would not be alive. Like that is not the way you operate all the time. But when we get to that level of anger, it's like we see nothing else. I mean, it's so crazy to me that the people I love the most in my life, my kids and my husband, they can make me also the most angry. It's like, why is that? Well, because those intense feelings of love, the intense feelings of anger, it all comes from your amygdala. And what actually ends up happening when you're angry, say, your amygdala gets bigger. And so if you think about our actions as like a club, a nightclub, that's sort of like what we do, right? Entrance into the club, into the nightclub, before we actually do the thing that we're doing, it always comes from our thoughts. Our thoughts and our behaviors, they dictate our actions. So if our actions are like this nightclub that we're trying to get to, hippocampus is usually the bouncer. So if you feel a certain way, the hippocampus is like, hold up a minute. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We know better than that. And they're like, yeah, okay, you're right. And then you do the right thing. And then your action is positive, right? I always say to my kids, is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it helpful? Ask yourself that question first before you go say the thing. That's like the hippocampus standing in front of your action in front of the nightclub being like, hold up. Is it kind of necessary? Is it helpful? And you're like, yeah, you're right. It's probably not. And then I go into the club and I do the thing. Well, when your amygdala gets big because your feelings, your emotions have taken over, that amygdala gets big and it literally has a pass to the nightclub and it bypasses the bouncer of the hippocampus. It's just like, I feel this way, I'm going in. And then the actions are kind of outrageous because they just got a pass. They didn't have to show ID. They didn't get stopped by the bouncer. They just went right in. So when your amygdala gets, we call it hijacked. When you have an amygdala hijack, all knowledge goes out the window. Your hippocampus actually gets overtaken by the size of your amygdala. It actually physically grows. It's not your fault. Now, I get it that you can't just be like, well, my amygdala is hijacked. It's not my fault. It's the physiological response in your brain. And when we're angry, it gets bigger. We lash out. And then have you ever afterwards been like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I hate to use this analogy, but it's something that we do need to think about. If you have ever been around somebody that's abusive, if you've heard about people being physically abusive, and then afterwards they are so apologetic, they are so sorry. And you can tell that they like actually really physically are sorry. They don't know how that became them. They have a severe amygdala hijack where it's like they don't even have control. They don't even know who they are, and then severe guilt afterwards because their amygdala has now shrunk. Your hippocampus, your knowledge center is like, I know what to do. Why do I do those things? Think about that with food. Your hippocampus is like, okay, you see that chocolate cake right there. Like, this isn't going to serve your body. You had chocolate cake yesterday. You had chocolate cake the day before. Why don't we take a break? Like, we know that this isn't going to serve your body, and we know it's going to cause a huge blood sugar spike. And we know that we're really trying to get healthy. We know that we really want to get there. But then your feelings, your emotions, right? The day that you were like, yeah, but I had the worst day ever. My boss yelled at me. I got a speeding ticket. I got in a fight with my husband. And your amygdala is like, yeah, girl, let's do this. The amygdala actually gets bigger. And if you don't realize it, you ride this tidal wave. It's like you're just sitting on a surfboard and you're just letting the wave take you instead of actually anchoring to the bottom of the ocean and saying, listen, I know what's happening right now. I know my amygdala is getting bigger. I know my emotions are taking it away. If you can actually be more self-aware of that, that's amazing of how that actually helps. But your amygdala will say to you, you're not going to lose 40 pounds by tomorrow. You've had a really bad day. Your amygdala is going to get bigger. It's going to actually take over. It's going to have a direct VIP pass into the club, and you're going to eat the cake. And you're going to be like justified, feeling good about it in the moment because your amygdala is bigger. And then once it shrinks, that's when guilt sets in because the reasoning center came back to their shift. Maybe they were out. They weren't there. The amygdala was able to walk right in. And it's sort of like a guard dog. If you think about a guard dog and they're chained to a fence and they're like barking, 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 they get just like triggered, right? You got to learn what your trigger is to that amygdala hijack. And what are the preventative measures for you to be able to not have to have that hijack? So you have a guard dog and they get triggered and then they are barking incessantly. Very often, the only two things by the time you get to that place that's going to calm that dog down is to throw them a steak or to let them tire themselves out. So after that steak, then they're like, okay, good. I'm good. And then they get back. And it's almost like the same thing happens to us. I need to just emotionally eat, or I need to scream at somebody, or I need to like do something. And then it's like that guard dog gets tired. They're sleepy and they're like, okay, I'm good now. You need to figure out a way to not let that amygdala get too hijacked. Be aware that that's happening because otherwise you are going to make choices over and over and over again that keep sabotaging you because you're not actually recognizing the root cause of it. This is why giving you a meal plan is not going to work. I mean, I will teach you how to eat, but it won't matter if you don't understand stuff like this. So there's a strategy that we use with our amygdala hijacking. I mean, there's many, many, many strategies. And that's one of the big things that we're teaching to our clients on a regular basis, because we don't know when the amygdala hijack is going to come. We can teach you the theory, but then it's going to come, and we need to be able to coach you in the moment why it's happening, or shortly thereafter. So we can start to recognize, and this is where the behavior specialist comes in, there is always something that happens. There's always a trigger before the actual behavior. And if you can start to train yourself to recognize the function of that behavior, the reason why that behavior is happening, what happened just before that behavior, the antecedent, the thing that happened just before, you can start to control the amygdala hijack. It's powerful. It's so cool. But as you feel that amygdala hijack, I'm going to give you one strategy right now to be able to help you, because you can see this, right? You can see how I said horny too, right? Like if you're horny, if you're angry, if you're sad, if you're bored, if your cravings are high, if you've had a bad day, all of that can take over your amygdala and you make choices that you wouldn't normally make. And then you feel guilty later, or you're just like, wow, that like so wasn't me. So I want you to think of SNAP. Put in the comments, SNAP. Snap, 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 snap. This is only one of many different ways that you can be thinking about it. But at the end of the day, if you can, and I love this because we call it, I often say SNAP every 3, just like we do PFC every 3, protein, fat, and carb every 3 hours. We're constantly fueling our body, and our body is talking to us. And so have this amazing dialogue between ourselves and our body based on the food that we're putting in our bodies. But that amygdala can be checked and should be checked on a regular basis. So I always say SNAP every 3, and get yourself in that practice where it's stop what you're doing. And I said, just do it maybe while you're eating. We just habit stack that. We just stack that habit on top of the other habit. Stop, notice, SN. Notice what's happening right now. I always say self-consciousness is the disease, self-awareness is health. If you are aware, you are going to be so much more able to do something about it. The problem is you've been riding this wave with no awareness of this amygdala hijack. So then it comes and you have like no idea. But if you are aware of this, that is going to be a very pivotal and important step. So notice what's happening right now. Am I feeling heightened? Am I letting feelings dictate what's going on? Is my amygdala getting bigger? You don't need to actually feel it getting bigger to know. What does my body actually feel like when this is happening? Is there heat in my stomach? It's not like you feel angry. What is the physical thing happening inside of your body? Are you getting warm? Is your pinky shaking? Like, what is it that's actually happening? That's going to be a good opportunity for you to notice when this kind of thing is happening. And then ask yourself, is what I am feeling right now true? Vision cast, ask yourself, how am I going to feel in 3 hours from now if I go do this thing that I want to do right now? A is about asking yourself questions to make sure that what you're doing right now is thought about fully. And then P is pivot. Pivot what you feel like doing and go do something else. Make a 180-degree turn. Do something else just for that moment. Doesn't mean forever. So if it's about that chocolate cake, it's SNAP, SNAP. Stop, notice, ask yourself, and then pivot. Let's go do something else right now. And in 20 minutes, if I still want that cake, I'll go do it. I can still have it. But now I'm going to go take a walk. I'm going to go watch a show. I'm going to go like have a glass of water. I'm going to go do something, have a PFC meal, whatever it is. And I'm not saying I just can't have it. I'm just saying, pause. We're going to pivot for a second. Those kinds of things allows your guard dog to actually get a little bit tired before it just attacks. Be careful for that amygdala hijack, you guys. This is why what we do is different. This is why we disrupt what people think they know about nutrition, because there's these little factors that are actually these little tears in your plan to get healthy or lose weight or whatever it is. You can't lose weight without actually getting healthy first. It's just not possible if you want to do this for the long term. And actually start thinking about your overall approach to a healthy, balanced life. What does the healthiest version of you do, say, think, and believe? And if you are currently getting hijacked by your amygdala, more often than not, you are not a healthy person. So you got to work on that. losing weight, that number on the scale, just because you restricted calories, is not actually going to allow you to be the healthiest version of yourself. So put in the comments what you're thinking, what you take away. This is exactly what we teach when we work with our clients. And so this is the kind of stuff that I try to give you so you can start to think differently about what you're doing and why you're doing it. We would love to be able to connect with you more about this. So if you know, okay, in order to get something different, I have to do something different. It's time to make sure you get yourself booked on a call. We are booking calls out so far now, often weeks, that if you are like, I've been listening to this for too long, get yourself booked on a call. You're going to have a little survey to do so we can get to know you a little bit better. It is a free call where you will get massive clarity one way or the other. We cannot work with everybody that comes our way, but we can help everybody that comes on a phone call with us. Where overall, we're a pretty small organization. We only take 10 to 15 clients a month. So it's not about that, but it is about you having next steps, you being willing to say, okay, I need to do something and invest in myself, invest in the time to be able to get to know who we are so we can get to know who you are and help you get onto a path, because your amygdala is going to get hijacked over and over and over and over and over again. All right, that's what I got for you guys. Remember, wherever you are on your journey, there's a place for you here at Disruptive Nutrition. Comment on what you're taking away from this. Go review our podcast and tell people out there, yeah, like they're the real deal. Thanks, guys. Bye.